Welcome to the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anita Brooks, and here you'll find teaching topics, interviews, conversations, and coaching tips, all designed to help you level up. We all lead someone. The question is, are we leading well, exceptionally well? So join me on a quest, not for perfection, but absolutely for exceptional leadership. Welcome back to the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anita Brooks. And today we're going to do the last of this month's focus, this emphasis on mental breaks and emotional escapes. I'm really passionate about this topic because one, this is one of the reasons that I'm able to accomplish all that I do. I'm not just telling you something just to throw some content out there. I'm talking about something that I have been practicing for years. It is one of the secrets to my success. And today we're going to explore a principle that dates back thousands of years, yet it is more relevant than ever in our digital age. Today, I want to talk about the principle of Sabbath rest. So for many of us, the idea of a Sabbath, a day of rest, feels like a luxury we can't afford. I mean, we tell ourselves that all the time. In our always connected world, stepping away from our email or text messages, social media, or other digital obligations, it feels impossible. And as leaders, it feels as if we somehow aren't readily available 24/7, 365, somehow we're failing. And that is such a fallacy. It's also a danger because as leaders, taking a Sabbath break is not just beneficial, it's essential. So what does a modern day Sabbath look like? Well, it doesn't have to involve religious observance, though it can if that aligns with your beliefs. For our purposes, we're going to say a Sabbath is simply a regular intentional period of rest, a complete, and hear me emphasize the word complete, a complete break from work-related activities and digital communication. So I am going to tell you how I do it though, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of the why behind the what. So for me, the idea of a Sabbath rest really did come from a religious belief. Now, I've been that person, I'm not going to lie, that questioned whether God existed, questioned how he existed, I questioned all the different religions, yada, yada, went through all of that. And then I had a very personal, deep experience that made me know that God does exist. And I needed to do my best with what I knew to be obedient to what he said. And so for me, woman of faith and woman of Christian faith, and whether you agree with that or disagree with that or whatever, look, at the end of the day, that's between you and God. It's not my deal. But be careful. Don't just tune out because of what I just said as far as my religious beliefs, because I'm telling you, you're going to miss out on the greater good of what I'm sharing today. And I'm telling you, there is a massively important greater good that comes out of taking a Sabbath rest. But I just, think for a lot of people, they're interested and for them, it feels important to understand where I come from. So I'm just honestly telling you that. So for me, again, Christian woman of faith, I am a Bible reader. And so there's a lot of really good things that come from the Bible that I apply because they're so relevant to my life in the 21st century. And taking a Sabbath rest has been one of those. So as I read the Bible, more and more, I noticed how often it talked about taking a Sabbath rest. And so I really thought about that. And I thought about, well, why would that be in there? And I knew that if I did try to rest, a lot of times I felt guilty about that. I don't know if that rings true for you, but I know a lot of the leaders that I work with in P4 Power Coaching have told me the same. Well, Anita, if I'm not doing something, then I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I get it. I've definitely been there. But there was something about knowing that God told me to rest for one day a week that it was like I could give myself permission. So if he gave me permission, I could give myself permission. And so I began to practice that. And I mean, really, and I'll just, no pun intended, use the term religiously practiced, taking a weekly Sabbath rest. Now, for me, that's on a Sunday. Some people take a Saturday Sabbath, and I honor that. I believe in that. Some people say that they take a midweek Sabbath, and if that works for your schedule and you feel like it's good between you and God, then by all means. But the point is to take a true, complete break from those things that on most days are driving your thoughts, your time, your energy. And so instead of thinking of a Sabbath day, a day of rest, as a luxury you can't afford, just remember that in our always connected world, stepping away from not only all of those forms of communication I talked about, but our smartphones and watches, or our tablets, or our computers, all of that is going to be something that helps us to refill our cup. It gives us that so important mental break and emotional escape from things that normally draw energy from us. And what it allows us to do is replenish our energy pools. So for me, I mean, sometimes I'll take a Sunday afternoon nap. I'm not typically a napper. I'm typically a go-getter, get her done type of gal, and I'm going a lot. But taking a nap on a Sunday, I've actually learned to embrace that. And I know that I wake up and I feel so revived. Maybe not in the first few minutes. You know how it is. You're a little bit groggy at first, but I'm telling you, after that grogginess wears off, I feel so good because I did it. And I can tell the difference in my whole work week afterward, whether or not I got my Sunday nap or not. Can't always do it, but I do. I also, for me, I like to make sure that I attend a church service, that I'm congregating with other people who have a passion and adoration for God. And so we can go and we can worship Him and praise Him, and we can learn more things about Him. And again, that's something that fuels my spirit. Sometimes it's a matter of just getting outdoors and like really opening my eyes and my ears and my nose and even my skin, as strange as that may sound, but so that I can see, hear, smell, feel all of the various things of nature, of creation that our Creator made for us to enjoy, and then noticing it and appreciating it. And that's become such a beautiful part of a Sabbath day of rest for me. But whether it involves like any kind of religious observance or not, for our purposes, again, I just want to talk about that complete and intentional period of rest, taking that complete break from work-related activities. But for you, you might be thinking, well, Anita, I don't know how you carve out a whole day and set it aside just to rest and spend time with God and family, but I can't possibly disconnect for a whole day. But the truth is you can. And more importantly, you should. See, constant connection doesn't just lead to physical fatigue. It also results in mental and emotional exhaustion. A Sabbath rest allows your body, mind, and spirit to recuperate. And I think back, there's a couple of businesses that come to mind that I just think they are the coolest model of practicing Sabbath rest and then just seeing that be honored in the success and the victories of their business. Even though in the beginning, when they first started this, there were so many naysayers that told them they couldn't possibly afford to be closed on their day, which the two that are coming to mind for them is Sundays. So one is Chick-fil-A. If you are familiar at all with that story, it's such a compelling read. If you're not, go Google it. But the fact that the Cathy family decided that no matter what anyone else said, because people told them, they're like, you're selling chicken. The number one day of the week for chicken sales is Sunday, and you're going to close on Sunday? That's crazy. Close another day, but you need to be open on Sundays. But the Cathy family was convicted and they were committed that they were going to make sure that they honor God by staying closed on Sundays. And wouldn't you know it, I don't even have the exact statistics in front of me right now, but how monumentally successful this organization is. I think it's amazing, and I think it's gratifying, and I think it's something that we all can learn from. And don't you think that the level of customer service that they provide, which by the way, just far outnumbers anything I've seen in any other fast food business. I mean, you know that they've got great training when you can go to any Chick-fil-A across this country. And I can tell you, I've been to many of them across different states, and you will consistently hear, what is it my pleasure to get for you today? Or if you thank them for something, they'll say, it's my pleasure, because they really adopt that. And it's not just empty words or mere words either. You can tell by the attitudes and by the body language of facial expressions, tone of voice that back up those words, that these people really mean it. And I've often thought and pondered to myself, like, how much does getting that day of rest, they know they can count on that day of rest. Nobody's going to call them in because the doors are closed. Okay. If another employee calls off, nobody's going to pick up the phone and call me or text me and try to pressure me into taking their shift. I don't have to worry about it because at least one day a week, I get the day off, truly off, to unplug, unwind, and restore and refresh myself. I think that's just amazing. But another company that does that is Hobby Lobby. And so again, this family committed decades ago, even in the face of a lot of people who advised them differently, they decided to close their doors on Sundays so they're not open. And again, multi-million dollars. Matter of fact, I think they're $1 billion company. So they have exceptional customer service as well. And again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I don't think so, because I'm quite the student of like human behavior and the why behind what people do. And I really think there's a lot to be said about the mental fortitude and just the sheer energy and joy that is infused in us when we know that we can count on that day of rest. A Sabbath is not something to just blow off or to think is, oh, well, that's nice for some, but I can't afford to do that. I think it's an integral part of exceptional leadership and doing exceptionally successful business. So anyway, just my take on it. But let's talk about some how-tos of setting aside a regular time for your Sabbath rest. And again, this could be one day a week. You might do it a few hours each day. Personally, I don't think it has the same impact. I've known a few people who tried that. They're like, well, I can't set aside a whole day, but I'll carve out a few hours, every Tuesday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. No, it really doesn't have the same impact. I've known some people that said, well, on Thursdays, I'm going to wait and I'm going to take all Thursday morning off, and I'll go in and I'll go to work at 1 p.m. Again, not quite the same. There's a few things that can happen. One, if it's just a few hours in a day that we're trying to take off, sometimes we justify in our minds and we end up just working longer days. Well, then we didn't get much rest. Two, when you're thinking about either going in later, or you're thinking about, I need to hurry up so I can get out of here earlier, either one of those scenarios, it just puts a lot of extra added pressure onto the mind. And so I'm not a proponent of that. I'm not saying it wouldn't work for you, but I'm just saying I'm skeptical, and I'm not normally a skeptical person. So just saying you might consider that whole day. But the key is consistency. And during your Sabbath, make sure that you disconnect completely from digital obligations. So the busier that you are, the more responsive that you feel like you're required to be, whether by phone or watch or tablet or computer, turn it all off. Sometimes I take my smartwatch off on Sundays because I don't want to get the notifications. Even though sometimes I can turn most of my notifications off, it's weird. Every once in a while, one will slip through, and I don't want that. So sometimes I just take the smartwatch off for the day. I can put, do not, or I can turn my focus on my phone or do not interrupt kind of messages. You can put vacation responders on your email for the day, but whatever it is you need to do so that you can turn off the smartphone and the smartwatch, close your laptop, and step away, resisting that urge to check emails or texts, even though I know it's tough. Again, it's crucial to your ability to lead well, exceptionally well. Now, I will give you this disclaimer. You might want to inform your colleagues and employees, or if you're like me, you have clients or maybe you have customers, depending on what type of business, about your digital Sabbath. That way, they know not to expect immediate responses during those times. I tell the people in my life that you're not going to hear back from me on a Sunday, but you will hear back from me at the soonest possible opportunity I have on Monday, or like if I'm out of town or something like that, because I can tell you if I take a vacation or let's say sometimes I'm like keynoting conferences or retreats or something like that. Sometimes because of not just the time that I'm speaking, but also like when I'm meeting and visiting with people at my merchandise table, or sometimes people want to talk to me one-on-one and I make myself available as a speaker. I really try to not be that speaker that goes and holes up in their hotel room the whole time and they don't engage or interact with the participants, the audience members who frankly paid their way to come there and make it possible for me to be there as a speaker. So I try not to do that. Well, in those cases, I might need to turn my devices off as well, but it's important that I let the people know who are used to reaching me, because I'm a pretty timely person, that on these dates or during these time periods, I may not be as responsive as you're used to. So just make sure you keep that in mind. And then, the other thing is what do you do during your Sabbath? I've talked about some of the things that I do. I spend a little extra time reading my Bible and praying and meditating and just quiet time. I do try to go to church. I do spend time outdoor in nature, just honoring God and praising and thanking Him for what He's created. I do a lot of that type of thing. But sometimes too, it's spending time with loved ones, with family, being with close friends. Sometimes I just use that as a way to praise God for those relationships and spend time doing something with them. Sometimes it's big things. Sometimes it's little things. Sometimes it's just sharing a meal. Sometimes it's an activity. Sometimes it's just sitting and talking. But whatever it is, spending time with my loved ones is another thing that I try to do on my Sabbath day of rest. But I'll tell you what I'm not doing. I'm not talking about work. I'm not allowing myself to think about work. I'm not trying to solve work problems. I'm not trying to strategize some visionary or future situation. And I've had plenty of temptations to work on my Sabbath. I've had plenty of requests that I work on my Sabbath, but I don't do that. I'm really committed. I'm really committed to honoring God with my Sabbath. And I have seen the benefits and the blessings from that. And I believe that time is always made up to me because of the heart in which I do it. And I do take rests. I do take those naps. And so I'm able to unplug not just my body, but also my mind on my Sabbath day. Sometimes on my Sabbath, I will allow myself to engage in other activities, but the ones that don't require a lot of energy from me. So especially like personal growth types of activities. And for me, personal growth where I can actually ask God his opinion or for him to give me advice on things and maybe to ponder and meditate more deeply. So for me, sometimes that looks like, books that I'm reading or certain podcasts with an emphasis on my relationship with God. Journaling is big. Again, whether you're doing this from a religious practice or not, journaling is such a neat thing to do because like when you journal, you get things that sometimes even come from the depths of your own subconscious and you get them out on paper. And again, now this is Sunday, so I don't have my computer screen open, but like with a good old fashioned pen and paper, sometimes just to write in that way, just that using a different, kind of, the word's not coming to me, but a different kind of medium to write with, that spurs not only more creativity, but it spurs more things that come from deep within me and I'm able to get them outward, but where I can really think and reflect on things and, again, ask for God's wisdom and just, think about different types of insights and perspectives. And it's just a really neat practice to do. But by practicing that on a regular basis, it's so fascinating because on the moment in the day of my Sabbath rest, I'm not looking at it from a work perspective, but I can't tell you how many times then when I'm back to my work day, something from that reflection time it'll come from my memory bank and it leads to a solution or some kind of cool new thing that I hadn't thought of and probably wouldn't have thought about previously. But it's like my mind just keeps it like they're kind of like at rest on my Sabbath day, but waiting for me to go back to work. Because when I go back to work, then I can actually utilize that information. So it's really interesting. But all of these activities that I'm talking about that are quieter, more reflective, more with the inner workings of self and for me, God, are things that can help improve my leadership. They lend things to my leadership that I just don't think would be there otherwise. And they certainly help keep me from burning out. And so this is why a digital Sabbath for leaders is so crucial. It does prevent burnout. And by giving ourselves permission to rest, we prioritize our well-being, which is crucial for sustainable leadership, for effective leadership, for not feeling as if we are spread so stinking thin that if one more person comes and asks us a question or presents us with a problem, that we feel like we're going to either crack under the pressure or crack somebody over the head. And look, if you've been a leader, you know what I'm talking about. We may not say it out loud, but sometimes those fleeting thoughts come. Now we have to drive them away, but it can happen. And it usually happens when we are utterly fatigued and we feel like our energy stores are completely depleted, but it doesn't have to be that way. A Sabbath rest will enhance your performance. It will improve your attitude. It will increase your patience factor with the people that you're leading. And let me tell you something. We as leaders need to be able to exercise more patience with those who are following us. If we don't, we will not be exceptional. As a matter of fact, if we don't exercise patience, we may look back and there may be no one behind us anymore. Just for a while, we can convince ourselves that we're leading when no one's willing to follow. But rest rejuvenates the mind. It improves our creativity, our decision making, and our problem solving. And when you return to work after your Sabbath, you are much more likely to be effective and productive. And again, this sets an example for your people. When you take a Sabbath rest, you're not going to be so prone to sit there yawning and struggling, trying to plow through brain fog to concentrate on the important matters at hand. You are going to be refreshed. You're going to be sharper mentally, and you're going to connect with what's being said at a deeper level. It's all going to make you better at your job. A Sabbath rest helps you cultivate that better work-life balance. And we hear about work-life balance all the time. Again, to the point it's become cliche. But why are cliches cliches? Because they had value. They had so much value that a lot of people jumped on and they started doing it and talking about it. And before you know it, our ears start numbing out because we've heard it so much. But work-life balance is not something that we should discount. Work-life balance is not just important for ourselves. Work-life balance is important for our teams as well. And just think about this. We've heard this so many times if we've been leaders before, that a team is only as strong as its weakest link. Well, first and foremost, if you are not coming in rested, you may be the weakest link. But even if you're not setting an example for your people to take their own Sabbath rests so that they bring their best to the table when they're at work, then what's going to happen is it's going to create weak links among your team members. And you may have multiple weak links who are just so utterly exhausted they can barely function, much less do anything at a higher level when you need them to. So it is important for you to do it to sustain yourself, to refill yourself as a leader. But it's equally important that you practice regular, consistent Sabbath rest so that your people see how important it is as well. It's that thing that demonstrating rest and the importance of rest, it becomes valued and respected at work, in your industry. I know this again from experience. I've had so many people, when they learn that I take a weekly Sabbath rest and that I am completely committed to it, I think initially there's a stage of shock, but then after the shock wears off, then it's something that people value and they respect. They see that I'm not only promoting a healthier and more sustainable work culture as a business coach, I'm walking that walk. I am talking the talk because I know how important it is, but I'm manifesting the reality that when we take Sabbath breaks, when we get the rest that our minds and our bodies and our souls and our spirits need, that we are better on the job. We're more accurate. We come up with ideas more quickly. We make a greater positive impact. We leave a greater difference wherever we go because people know that we've got it together. We're ready to roll. We're not yawning. We're not trying to hide and mask the yawns in our meetings. We're not dragging when we walk, but there's vigor and energy to our steps. And that lends to a state of confidence and trust that makes other people want to follow you. So if you don't think that you need a Sabbath rest, then I challenge you to think again. I challenge you to ask yourself, when was the last time I gave myself permission to truly release and let go the pressures, the stressors, the fatigue inducers, and restore my soul so that it is well and it is healthy and it is positioned to make life better for my team members, for my customers or clients, for my vendors, for my community, my neighbors, and my family and friends. Let me tell you something. When you're intentional to take a Sabbath rest, it's better for everyone who's touched by it. So there you have it, exceptional leaders. The ancient principle of the Sabbath rest, repurposed for our modern digital world. It's a practice that is as simple as it is profound, and it's one that can transform your leadership and your life. Make this the day that you schedule it on your calendar, you commit, and you follow through, you execute on taking a weekly Sabbath rest. And I challenge you, try it for 90 days. 90 days. Take one day a week, set it aside for rest, for family, friends, and maybe for you, even faith. And see if you do not begin to feel more energized, and see if you don't start doing a better job, and see if you don't start yawning a little less in the next meeting you're sitting in. Until next time, stay intentional, be exceptional. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. There's magic in meeting with an objective, and I always have an objective for you, not only in these episodes, but also from the other resources I offer on my website, anitabrooks.com. That's ANITABROOKS.com. There you'll find information on digital courses, webinars, books, workbooks, of course, my in-person P4 power coaching for businesses and organizations. And if you need a speaker for your conference or your strategic retreat, I'm your gal. But I'm also excited to let you know about a new service that we're offering. For less than half the price of a daily Starbucks latte for a month, you can join our P4 Power Coaching community. This is a monthly membership where you'll get insider tips. And you'll also be able to join our monthly Zoom meetings that are one part strategy sessions, one part mastermind, one part networking, one part coaching. I can promise you, you'll not only learn from me, but you'll learn from others in the group. We'll also have monthly webinars as part of the P4 Power Coaching community, and we'll have coaching resources and exercises. And you'll get first opportunities and special offers for many of the other things that we have to offer. And of course, you will get leadership encouragements. The P4 Power Coaching community is all about growth, success, and celebrating our wins. And remember, it's never too late for a fresh start with fresh faith. So embrace your exceptional leadership impact with fresh resolve to make the difference you were made for.